everybody. Thanks for joining the CSA Hong Kong and Macau chapter March knowledge sharing, which and I will facilitate today. We are very happy to invite Ken Zhang from AWS Professional Service to share the top 10 AWS security tips. They are about some fundamental recommendation, very simple to implement, while offer very high impact. If time allows, Ken will have some demo before the Q&A session. Ken is the practice manager of AWS Professional Service. He is specialized in cloud strategy, security, transformation, architect, and change management. He has been helping the organization in banking, insurance, retail, health service, and manufacturing with their transformation journey. He also holds many widely recognized tech cert and an MBA from a global top business school. Before the start, wonder whether do you want to have a screen capture together? Yeah. And do you mind to open your cam? Yeah, to open your webcam so that we can have a screen capture together. Yeah. So let me to capture the screen. Okay, thank you very much. Let me to capture the screen now. That okay. Put. And then as Richard mentioned, if you have any questions, please submit them in the chat box. And finally, and now it's time to pass it to Ken. Welcome, Ken. Pass to you.
Okay, thank you, Otto. That was quite an introduction. Like I hope I live up to what you talked about me. But thank you very much. So I think I'm going to say two most frequent phrases that are used in 2020. Can everyone hear me okay? And can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Fantastic. Great. So look, my name is Ken. Practice manager working for AWS Professional Services and look after DevOps and security practice. And what I'm going to do today is to talk about the top 10 AWS security tips. The topic in itself can be subjective. Many people who came to this session may have the question, is it Ken's list or is it someone else's list? How legitimate the top 10 list is? So I'm going to unpack that for you. I'm going to talk about how did we come up with this top 10 list, what are source information, based on what kind of information. But also, I was going to do some demo, but then thinking about logistics, I actually took some screenshots. So I'm going to talk to some of the demo using screenshots. And also, I'm going to throw in some real life field experience that worked with some of the customers in this region to back it up why those tips are important for you. So we all heard about 80-20 rule, right? So hopefully what we're going to do here today is that 20% of input that will give you 80% of the output. This top 10 tips list actually came from 3 different sources. The first one is our field team. The field teams will be our solutions architect team, the technical account managers, the professional services. Among all of us, we've conducted over thousands of different well-architected reviews. And on the back of those reviews, we came up with some of the recommendations. And some of the recommendations actually correlate, and some of the recommendations also overlap. And that's the first source of information to this top 10 list. The second source actually collates with the third as well, are coming from our support teams. So support teams, if you're using AWS, you wouldn't be feeling strange about supporting. If you have a problem, you contact them through the support portal, etc. And sometimes they will contact you as well if they find anything that's suspicious in your AWS account. But also when you are on the security event, you can also contact them. So support team actually respond to some of the customer events. Should that be security events or other events? All of those actually came up to the input of the top 10 tip list today. So there's no Ken's list. It's actually the summarized version of all the different field sources we came up today with this top 10 tip list. So here they are. You don't need to take a screenshot, by the way. If you want to, that's fine as well. We're going to distribute this PDF version of the talk later on as well. So one of the things we've done since we first came up with this list is we changed tip number 8 from take action. Previously, it was just guard duty. Guard duty, by the way, is a machine learning backed, fully managed threat detection service in AWS. We changed from just guard duty to all the security findings, which later on I'm going to unpack that for you as well. So I've got not much time. Actually, I've got 10 things to go through. So let's get going. So tip number one, you've got to have accurate account information. This is the one people often don't get right. I'm feeling guilty myself as well. I actually haven't got it right until we sort of doing our account auditing, and I found out I haven't got a second get it right. So if you're sitting in front of a computer now, if you happen to have access to your AWS environment in a console, in the top right-hand side, there's a drop-down list where you can go to My Account, okay? And from there, there's a section called Alternate Contacts. So as we know, when you're using AWS accounts, unless you're in the China regions, you need to use an email address, right, to sign it up. That's your root account. And AWS, if there's any communication, the first point of contact to us is to go to those that email you use to sign it up. But there's another section underneath the account information, alternate contacts. There are 3 different sections: the billing, operation, and security. As the name suggests, you kind of know what sort of information I will be sending out to you based on the contact you're filling over here. So I have a link over here, basically taking you to how do you fill in information here correctly. And you may have a question, okay, I understand security is important. I need to fill, a contact detail over here. What about billing and operations? Well, billing can be very important. It can be an indicator of compromise for you as well. So I'm going to throw in a real example over here. So here's a customer. They're running about 60 or 70 different AWS accounts. And some of the AWS accounts that were using them for the proof concept innovation purposes. And they didn't anticipate some of the spike in terms of spending of the AWS account. However, in the billing, they found out they're actually paying significantly large amount of money for some of the GPU instances, EC2 instances, virtual machines, right? In one of the AWS accounts, I didn't know that. So once they traced it back, they found out someone at the region they don't normally use actually instantiated the EC2 instances for the crypto mining. So that's the indicator as well. Billing can be very useful from a security perspective. Now, operation can be useful as well, because that's the channel for us to tell you if there's any service degradation in certain regions. Also, we know in the security, resilience, availability is part of that domain as well. So operations contact very important. Also, another tip within the tip, I'm going to throw quite a lot of tip within tip over here. Okay, so for all the contacts you're filling over here, you want to give a distribution list instead of some individual person's email address, such as Ken, because reasons very obvious. The person leaves the company can still receive information, but also in addition to assign distribution list, you also want to test whether those distribution lists can actually receiving emails on a regular basis as part of your process. So that's the tip number one. Now, tip number two, quite obvious, use MFA. Okay. Now, I think most of us, if you're using AWS account or any public cloud, we know the root account, and I assume most of us get the root account right. You got MFA sign up, and you've got all your protection around password complexity, MFA, and you don't use the root account. You only use the root account to create your admin accounts, so they'd be like locked away in the safe somewhere, for example, just that analogy. Now, in addition to root accounts, often people overlook is the IAM users. So IAM users, I don't want to spend more time to explain what that is, but essentially it's a user you create in AWS environment that comes with username and password, okay? And also, IAM user, you can also create API-driven access keys and secret keys. Without the MFA, if you lose the password, and then people can access your environment from anywhere in the world. So different ways you can secure that, but most useful way is MFA. In fact, in our support team, we have a incident response team called Zipline. So essentially, if you go to the support channel, and Zipline guys will be deployed. In 2020, we've done a bit of data crunching. We found out most of the incidents we handled to Zipline actually can trace back to lost IAM user secret keys or IAM user password. So all of those instances actually can be totally avoided if you had MFA on IAM users as well. Now, I understand some of you guys came from enterprise, right? You have your existing identity stack. Should that be Okta? Should that be Azure AD or something else? Doesn't matter. We also support integration, the federated identity with those stack as well. And the beauty of you integrating your existing stack with AWS environment is you can actually leverage your existing MFA workflow. So you might have your MFA set up that's outside of AWS environment, but integrated with your, let's use the example of Azure AD, integrated with your Azure AD. And that's the point where you can enforce MFA before the token, successful signing token being passed to AWS, therefore to get temporary credential to access AWS resources. So using federation, it can definitely inherit and leverage your existing MFA workflow. Now, MFA, it also works with command line interface. It can be a little bit cumbersome, but for people who are using the command line interface, MFA token, should that be a mobile phone one or the hardware token, both work with them. And if you are working for a company that requires high level of security, often some of the security standards and compliance standard, etc., they were actually specifically asking you to use physical, like FIPS certified MFA token as your MFA device, as opposed to the mobile phone devices. And in AWS, we actually have a we call it foundational standard, and one of the standard inside of the standard, one of the control is basically enforcing the use of a physical security token for your root account as well. Now, in AWS, we're not shy calling you out if you haven't got MFA right. Okay, if you ever go to the IAM section of the console and you haven't got root account MFA set up, we'll let you know. There's an exclamation mark over there. And if you ever go to the trusted advisor, you haven't got MFA set up, guess what? We'll let you know as well. And like I said, if you go to the, if you ever use the Security Hub and you turn on the foundational standard, guess what? We're going to let you know as well. So if you don't want to be bothered by us, turn on MFA for your IAM users for root accounts, okay? And that's very, very important control that you can get. It certainly is low-hanging fruit. You should capture this very important security control. Now, the third tip is to have no hard code secrets, and this one can be quite obvious as well. And again, I want to throw in a secret. I want to throw in a real example over here. We've done a test. If you ever to have a GitHub repo and the repository is open to the internet, it's public repo, for example, it takes probably about 5 minutes or less. If you ever upload your secret key, AWS secret key in your repo, you'll be compromised, you'll be gone in less than 5 minutes. There are automation out there trying to scan all the open repos for the AWS secret key. Like I said before, if you have a secret key and you don't have any MFA in place, and basically you're giving away your key to someone unknown in the entire world, in the entire universe. So I don't need to stress why you don't want to hard code secrets, but also want to you should be avoid using the secrets, like long-lived secrets to begin with. So we talked about IAM users before, just now. Well, I want to talk about IAM roles. So IAM roles in AWS essentially doesn't come with, simply put, no password. It is assigned to trusted entities in AWS. So IAM roles is going to integrate and interact with the STS, the Security Token Service in AWS, in order to exchange for short-lived tokens to access your AWS environment. So even for whatever reason, people can compromise that short-lived token, and the impact of the compromise is limited as well. Now, if you ever to have to use long-lived token, long-lived secret keys, you may want to rotate them on a regular basis, which later I'm going to talk about how AWS can help you to realize that as well. Now, having the hard-coded secret can also, not mentioning the compromise, the risk of compromise, it can also create business disruption. But think about it, if you ever find out, even just you suspect one of the long-term secrets is being compromised, and the prudent way of dealing with that is to change it, right? And often long-lived secrets will build dependencies between the systems. And if you want to swap them out with a new secret, usually that will introduce a business disruption, and that's unavoidable. Now, in the AWS, we have a secrets manager that helps you to store and manage database credentials, API keys, etc. So later I'm going to talk about how you can use secrets manager to automatically rotate your RDS, which is managed database service in AWS, using a password without you having to write any line of the code. Okay. Now, in addition to secrets manager, I'm going to talk about another service can come very handy as well. Now, you can also, this is basically a console screenshot of the secrets manager. As you can tell, there are different services that's supported natively, and if it is supported natively, we will help you to rotate your secret. So you can think that secret manager working like a bank safe, right? You walk into the bank, you have the key, you open a safe, there's something inside of the safe. And for the system perspective, they don't need to understand what's inside of the safe. As long as they have the key to the safe, every time they retrieve, within the safe will be the fresh credentials. Later, I'm going to show you the diagram, how you can rotate them. Now, here's another service. It's called SSM, the System Manager Parameter Store. So parameter store can be very useful as well. It is also integrated with our key management service. So you can use KMS, key management service, to encrypt data of the secrets you store in the parameter store. Now, you might ask the question, so which one, secrets manager or parameter store? Depends. Okay, I don't want to give you the answer, but it depends. Key differences between these two services are secrets manager helps you to rotate your secrets automatically for supported services. And also we have the SDK or guidance in place, helping you to leverage secrets manager to rotate other secrets as well. Okay. Now, it comes with a cost for the API calls, consumption model. So you pay for whatever amount of the API calls you use. The parameter store, on the contrary, doesn't come with additional cost. But at the same time, parameter store doesn't allow you to automatically rotate the secrets that's stored within the parameter store. And also, parameter store comes with a limit. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's 10,000. Look it up on the documentation. So it comes with a limitation how many secrets you can actually store in the parameter store as well. Now, parameter store, on this note, I also want to share another very useful use case for parameter store. Now, imagine you're working for a big enterprise and you want to mandate the base virtual machine image you want people to use, right? You can sort of build automation to build your compliant version of the image, and every image that's compliant at that point in time will come with a unique identifier, right? Let's call it AMI. And you can ingest that AMI number to be stored in a parameter store. So every time someone in your organization, let's say operation team or DevOps team or just dev team, they're trying to use a new virtual machine, they just need to go to that parameter store, retrieve that unique identifier, then we'll know that's the virtual machine that's sanctioned by the enterprise. It's got all the patches, all the bells and whistles installed. So I'm happy to use it, and I'm feeling confident using it as well. So that's another use case very useful for the parameter store. Now, the fourth one is around the security groups. So security groups, quick introduction, it essentially, you can think that as a firewall, but wrapped around in AWS, wrapped around the what we call ENI, Elastic Network Interface. Okay, so because it's wrapped around ENIs, you can essentially wrap the security groups around your EC2 instances, your virtual machines. You can wrap them around your RDS, your database, managed database services, and you can also wrap them around application load balancers as well. Now, the security group is a stateful firewall, so you don't have to define, if you have defined outbound traffic or inbound traffic, you don't have to define the other way. It gives you the flexibility. But also very important, security group doesn't come with deny rules, which later I'll talk about. You need to use security groups and NACL, the network ACL, network access control list together to build your control. But bringing back to security groups, most important thing is you want to only open, when you define inbound, outbound rules, the source and destination, you want to limit them to the network range that you know. Even on that though, our recommendation is to use the security group ID as the inbound or outbound, source and destination. And here's a very simple reason why that's important. So imagine you have a very simple two-tier architecture, right? You have two different subnets, and that's your web server, that's your application server. They have database server somewhere, three-tier. Okay, so in order to allow your middleware to retrieve or to receive the inbound traffic from your web tier, you define the inbound traffic as entire subnet CIDR block. And when you have the front end web servers sitting behind auto scaling group, i.e. they're going to scale it out when there's more load, when they scale it back when there's no load. Okay, fair enough. That's how cloud works. So in order to allow that traffic to happen, and if you are using CIDR blocks, you will have to define the inbound traffic to be allowed for an entire CIDR block, even though you might not have scaled out web servers. Okay, so inevitably you have to allow that, you have to be prepared. So in that sense, you're actually opening yourself up to more attack surface because all the IP addresses that's not there, not used, you still open up to them. But if you're using security group ID, for instance, you can wrap around those IDs on your front-end web servers. So when they scale it out, they will automatically have the security group wrapped around them, right? So you're only allowing instances with a particular security group to have access to your middleware. So that way, you don't have to keep the CIDR block open all the time. You will just open to the instances with that security group ID. That again helps you to run your micro-segmentation. It can help you to tighten down the attack surface as well. That's very, very important. Now, another thing I want to talk about is you can use the AWS config, which is AWS service, and the firewall manager. Now, firewall manager, I'm going to talk about later on as well. It is a service so powerful, and very, very few people in this region actually use it. So use AWS config and the firewall manager. It can programmatically monitor the compliance level of your security groups. So later on, we'll have some screenshots. You can define desired security group policies, inbound and outbound. For example, you can say, I don't want anyone to have an inbound route that's open to all the ports, etc. So you can use these two services to help you to pick up if there's any security group that's non-compliant in your environment. Okay. Now, furthermore, with the firewall manager, you can automatically apply security groups to your selected resources across all your AWS accounts, because the firewall manager works with another service called AWS Organization, as the name suggests, organization, right? So it works if you enforce that particular policy from the file manager, from the organization perspective, it's going to propagate down to all your member accounts in your environment. It's very, very powerful, very essential for centralized or maybe enterprise security or any security team. You're always competing against probably one security person versus probably 200, 300 type of person, right? So that gives you the power to automate but also enforce your policy from one place. Now, if you ever using the AWS Inspector, which is essentially a vulnerability scanning solution for our EC2 instances. If you're ever using that service, it comes with certain packages, right? One of the packages is called network reachability. So these packages essentially helps you determine all the possible ways how your EC2 instances can be reached from external network. Now, this may sound easy to you, but it can be complicated, especially when you have a very complicated architecture. Your EC2 may be sitting behind like WAF, sitting behind ALB, sitting behind your own firewall, etc. It can be difficult to figure out how you can figure out the traffic, whether it's allowed from network ACL, whether it's allowed from security group, whether it's allowed from even virtual gateway as well. So it's very, very powerful if you ever use the Amazon. Now, I want to talk a little bit more around the firewall manager. The firewall manager, again, is super powerful, but based on my personal experience in this region, people don't really use it. But over here, hopefully today, all of you guys becoming the advocates, I really want people to start looking into how you can leverage a firewall manager. So we talked about how Firewall Manager can help you to manage security groups, right? That's fantastic. And it can also help you to manage your WAF. So similar concept, you can define the WAF rules and apply to ALBs, apply to CloudFront, etc. And then you can also use Firewall Manager to manage your Shield Advanced. So if you ever subscribe to Shield Advanced, you can manage to Firewall Manager as well. And also, the newly announced Network Firewall is also managed by Firewall Manager. So I think Network Firewall, it is now available for in quite a few regions. It won't be long before it became available in Hong Kong as well. And Firewall Manager can export all the compliance alerts and all the events to AWS Security Hub, which essentially is not an AWS security service. As the name suggests, you probably can imagine it's the hub for all of your AWS native and also integrated third-party even security events. And because you have the centralized firewall, we have centralized the hub, you can choose to use the Security Hub as the bridge, as the hub, to trigger your downstream processing. It can be your existing SIEM, SOC, it can be your existing automation processes, etc. Later on, we're going to unpack that as well. But right now, I'm going to show you some screenshots around Firewall Manager. Hopefully, that can draw some of interest. So this is a screenshot essentially showing I have set a demo rule. It's called I don't want to see any security group with permissive rules. How do I define permissive rules? It basically says if it's got all the ports open, 0 to 65535, and I don't like that, I want to pick out all the things that's non-compliant, and also applies this particular rule on the organization level. So it's not going to just look at one AWS account, as you can tell over here. It's actually looking at several AWS accounts as well. Now, also have the option to turn on automatic remediation. What that means is, if I ever find something that's non-compliant, ones I don't like, do I want to automatically change them? I want to, right? But also, my piece of advice is that's very powerful, but also you want to test it. I think the most probably you should bring the testing as part of your environment escalation, environment promotion, rather, process in your organization. So you can starting with picking up things that's non-compliant and trying to fix them from the source, and also you can turn on auto remediation in the production environment. So you have the confidence, even if someone making a mistake, or even someone, let's say an adversary, trying to change your security group. The Firewall Manager is going to help you automatically change it back to the compliant state. Now, this is what policy says. I can define the action. I can also define the scope as well. So over here, you can go, hey, this policy is only looking at security groups. So if it's only looking at security groups, it's probably going to just look at all the security groups, irrespective if the security group has been assigned to EC2, RDS, etc. But you can also choose to say, hey, look, I want to look at EC2 instances only. I don't want to care about RDS, that kind of stuff. It's your choice. They have a flexibility to define a scope, and you can define multiple different policies in the AWS Firewall Manager as well. Now, over here, you can talk about different versions. That's basically a screenshot when you're creating the security policy, right? You can have different versions. The Security Hub is one of them we talked about. Shield Advanced is another one of them, and WAF is another one. So if you're in a region, I was in the Singapore region. So if you're in a region that supports network firewall, and you will have network firewall showing up over here as well. And you can choose to go, hey, I want audit without enforcement, or you can go, I want to audit, but also I want to enforce those my rules as well. You have all those flexibility. I think I spent quite a bit of time over here, but it warrants the time. I really want people to look into the Firewall Manager, how that can help you. Now, tip number 5, I think I need to speed up a little bit. So this one is around data policy. So we know security essentially should be a risk-driven decision. You're not going to go 100% security. In the security, there's always unlimited things to do, and limited time, and limited budget, limited people and skill set. Everything's limited. Only problem is unlimited, right? So you've got to think about how do you apply security on the things that's most important to you as an organization, which bringing back to the data classification. Now, data classification, I trust most enterprise will have them already. And when you're running the cloud, it's very important for you to tag, to identify certain resources or certain workload are actually holding what level of classification of data. So therefore, you can apply security controls appropriately. So for instance, you want to go fast in the cloud, guaranteed, right? But sometimes you need to sort of slow down, pressing the brake pedal to look at security. So you can't press the brake pedal at all the initiatives. So for the things that's critical to your business, you probably want to more rigor into assessing those security controls. For the things that are less important, probably like public data, etc., you can sort of relax your controls. So if you don't have data classification right now in your organization, I think even use public and non-public will be a very good starting point. Can give you the line. You can join the middle to say, hey, these are the things, even when they're leaked out, because the public data, people can get them already. But these are the important things for me as an organization. Over here, I want to throw in an example how people solve this kind of problem. So this particular customer, they use a lot of our services, and S3 bucket was one of them. So they made a decision to say, hey, I do have some use cases. I need to have my S3 bucket open to the internet. For example, my public information, I want to exchange with my suppliers, etc. That kind of stuff. That was a legitimate use case, but they want to have the rest of S3 bucket open to the internet. And they learned about there's a service in AWS or feature in AWS. They can block S3 bucket access on an account level. Okay. Now, what I did was we helped them design this structure. We segregated one particular AWS account. Only that particular AWS account can have S3 bucket that's open to the internet. And also at the same time, we're tightening down who can actually upload the data or transform data into that particular AWS account. It has to go to our pipeline. It has to go to our rigorous security controls. There's only one way you can upload data that can be exposed to the internet. And the rest of the AWS accounts, we enforce the account level S3 bucket blocking. So people basically cannot make a mistake by trying to expose something because that's turned off on the account level. Also, we're tightening down IAM controls as well. So only very privileged users can change the setting. Other normal users cannot even change the setting. So that way, we give them the use case of sufficing them sharing information to the internet, from the internet. Also help them to control the information that's critical to them on the S3 bucket as well. So we talked about tagging a little bit. Tagging essentially is adding the metadata to your service in AWS, and tagging again is a very important thing. And tagging, it is also the foundation for you to drive your automation later on as well. You can think about it. If you tag something, let's say an S3 bucket is tag saying classification critical, and if you enforce the tagging cannot be changed by other people, like normal people, you can have your automation looking for if there's any S3 bucket that's got a tag says critical, and to run your automation, auto remediation, etc. in place. Now, tip number 6, it is to centralize all your AWS logs. Now, different types of logs, a lot of them, but one of those most important ones you need to be aware of is AWS CloudTrail. So CloudTrail essentially is audit log. Okay, in the cloud, everything's an API call, and AWS CloudTrail logs almost all API calls. Okay, my language, almost all. What does it mean? So if we have a new service that's been announced, let's say last week or something like that, there's likelihood that particular new service has not been integrated with CloudTrail, but we're working on that. So those are the edge cases, but based on my experience, most enterprise, you're using the services at 100%, that's been there for some time, and it's 100% integrated with AWS CloudTrail. So all the things are being logged in CloudTrail. That's one of the most important things for you to turn it on, to configure properly. So I'm giving you like 6 tips within the tip number 6. Okay, that's okay, rhymes. So first one you want to do is to turn on CloudTrail. If you're using AWS organization service, you can turn it on from the organization level. So automatically, all your member accounts in your organization will have CloudTrail turned on. Okay. Now, also you want to enable the log file validation, so you have the ability to demonstrate all your log files has not been they have not been tampered, we'll have hash function in place helping you to do the integrity check. Now you want to encrypt those logs at rest. So encryption at rest with S3 bucket, where you ingest all your CloudTrail logs, you can use the KMS, the key management service as well. Another thing you want to do is to ingest your CloudTrail logs to CloudWatch. By ingesting CloudTrail to CloudWatch logs, you can create metrics to monitor different activities, and thereafter you can change those metrics into alarms. Things like excessive failed logins. That's an API call, right? If I'm trying to log into AWS account and I don't have the credential, I've been failing. That's all the failed API calls. All of those can be exported to CloudWatch logs, and you can use those failed events to create alarm to say, hey, if someone fails consecutively, like say 3 times in a minute, 30 seconds, and then send an alarm. Once you create the alarm, you can sort of create your either manual process or automation. Now, the fifth one is to centralize all the accounts. So you want to nominate an account, which later I'm going to show you a reference architecture. You want to centralize all of your CloudTrail logs into one place. Therefore, you can sort of either you want to run big data analysis or you want to export those logs to your existing SIEM to make things easier as well. And lastly, you want to apply lifecycle policies for logging bucket. So S3 bucket being very economical storage option, you can definitely leverage lifecycle policies to move your logs from probably 30 days or 1 month, even year or 7 years, etc., into different storage tier to further optimize your storage cost. So now, this is the part I want to unpack, which is around the CloudWatch. Over here, we talked about CloudTrail is going to log all the API calls, and all the API calls can come from AWS console. So everything you do in the console, you click a button here and there, in the back end is actually an API call, right? And if you use AWS command line interface, it's going to come in as API call as well. If you're using any SDK, again, API call, all of those be logged. If you ship CloudTrail logs into CloudWatch, then you can leverage the CloudWatch event to look for certain patterns. And then from there, you can trigger downstream processing. It can be in the forms of sending an email. So you may have a security operations center or security analyst. You can send email to them to say, hey, I found a pattern matching things occurring in CloudTrail. You can then trigger automation using serverless solutions, etc. You can also, if you have a Slack, maybe you have engineering channel, we can then trigger the Slack. We have all those SDK or the sample code in place. So once you've done the CloudWatch event, really opens you up for infinite opportunity or possibilities where you want to deal with those security events. That's very important for you to build your modern security operation process as well. Now, here's the reference architecture of the centralized logging. We actually have a page talking about AWS landing zone. Okay, the landing zone is a very important concept. If not, all the project my teams are working on, if there's new customer or even the customer, they kind of go, I just want to do a little bit of things over here and there. I still advocate the landing zone. Landing zone, essentially, as the name suggests, gives you the critical foundation to set you up for success. So often we've seen customers kind of go, look, I just want to do this right now. I don't have time to think strategically, and I just want to have one account. But often what they don't realize is those customers may have their business grow really, really fast. And as their business grow, they're going to grow the AWS footprint. If they haven't got a foundation right, at certain tipping points, they're going to realize, hey, my lack of a strategy, lack of planning, actually prohibiting me from growing faster, prohibiting me from growing bigger as well. So that's why we're really advocating people to really set it up, landing zone structure. You can have a very simple version. If you go to if you search for AWS landing zone, you will see the page. It gives reference architecture and different guidance to set it up. Also, we have our APM partner networks and professional services. If you need help, we can help you as well. But to do the landing zone, irrespective of your footprint will be in AWS. That's just my piece of advice. Now, in the landing zone, one part of the landing zone is to aggregate all the logs into one place. So we're talking about if you get them in one place, you can ship them out to your SIEM, etc., different processes. Now, the seventh tip is to validate IAM roles. Okay, a little bit recap, right? So we talked about IAM users. IAM users are the ones with the, username and password and comes with the keys, etc. IAM roles are the ones without the secrets, right? They're going to use temporary credentials. They're secure. They're recommended ones. But at the same time, you want to make sure that those IAM roles actually don't have permissions assigned to them. Now, when you have like 2 or 3 or 10 IAM roles in one account, it's easy. But if you multiply that, like 50, 60 AWS accounts, every account have like, 20, 30 roles. It can be very, very difficult for you guys to keep track of what the permissions are there, what do I set, are they permissive or not, especially for, again, security team often are very small in any organization. Now, this is a service in AWS called IAM Access Analyzer. It gives you the ability, it basically fully manages, but it gives you the ability to figure out all the possible access paths in your environment leading up to the access. Now, Access Analyzer essentially, for the geeks online, it is based on cognitive science, automated reasoning. So we're actually putting our data scientists and our mathematicians to work on this particular service. Again, IAM Access Analyzer, it is integrated with the AWS organization. So if you're tenant on for an organization, it's going to be tenant on for all your member accounts, so once for all. And also at the same time, what I found is people in this region, they don't really use this one, this service, which is a shame. We really want people to look into Access Analyzer. It can be very, very powerful. I've taken a screenshot of all the information you can actually get from the AWS IAM Access Analyzer. Now, another thing you can do is to leverage the security standards in the Security Hub. In that, we're going to tell you, one of the Security Hub standard, the Foundation AWS standard, there are controls helping you to find if you have any permissive permissions in your IAM. Now, of course, you can use third-party open source tools from our partner network, from our marketplace, etc. Now, another thing you can also do is to go to the IAM section. If you go to IAM roles, there's right-hand side, you can find a filter, right? You can filter the last used kind of tag. So you may find out, surprisingly, that some of the IAM roles have been created but never been used at all. So those are the candidates you should consider to remove them as well. And obviously, you can leverage the AWS config to automatically monitor that for you as well, so you don't have to manually go into IAM section to look for those roles. So the IAM Access Analyzer, essentially, when it comes to permission, there's two parts of it. Some of the services in AWS, they also have resource-based policies, okay? So if I'm a resource, if I'm an S3 bucket, I can define who can access me. And the final access is determined the combination of resource-based policies and IAM-based policies. But sometimes, for S3 bucket, for example, if you have allowed certain identity to access your bucket on the S3 bucket policy, irrespective if that identity has a IAM permission or IAM role, access is allowed. And that kind of relationship, it can be very difficult for you to figure out manually when you're using script. You probably spend lots of time writing script, finding all the possible possibilities. And now, if using IAM Access Analyzer, you don't have to do any of those. All that is computed, is figured out, all the possible paths will be given to you in the portal. And obviously, if you run automation, you can basically query the API calls, put out API results, and do your automation from there as well. Now, IAM Access Analyzer, last thing I want to talk about is the importance of responding to the findings, which will be very nice segue to my 8th tip, to really take action on security findings. Turning those things on, Security Hub, Guard Duty, Access Analyzer, using Inspector, using Macy, all that great stuff. But they're as useful as you're responding to the events, okay? Now, this is basically a screenshot of the AWS Security Hub. As I said, it came with different security standards. And I want to draw your attention to the foundational AWS best practice standard. Essentially, when we sort of developing these standards, in AWS, they came with 40 rules actually, version like most original version, and over the time we're actually been enhancing this particular standard as well. If I'm not mistaken, right now this particular standard has 90 rules in this pack. So once you turn it on, there will be 9 different types of controls scanning through your environment. And for AWS Security Hub as well, you can aggregate them. So you can nominate AWS security accounts and turn it on in that account, but also you can turn on Security Hub in other accounts, but also aggregate information to the security account. So your security people can just log into one AWS account to see all the information in one place. Now, Security Hub also gives you a score, which can be very useful. I want to share a story over here that we have been working with this customer. They have different product teams. So each product team is one product, obviously, and every product probably will have several AWS accounts. What we help them is to sort of trying to drive up the security awareness and security capability within that organization. So we're going to go, every team, we're going to publish your overall security score for all the accounts that you're handling. And I want to drive a little bit gamification or competition between different product teams to say, hey, who can actually uplift your security score to like 80%, 90%, if not even 100%, right? So for that gamification in place, we actually help unconsciously helping the entire team to uplift that security as well. If you're able to unpack this particular standard, which I'll give you a little bit link over here, you can see all those standard, all those controls in the standards are actually very foundational, and you should get them right. And it shouldn't be something like very complicated. It can be very complicated if you haven't got it right from the beginning, because for remediation, again, you may introduce the business disruption to your applications, etc. But if you get it right from the get-go, you can have a very good clean sheet of paper to start your AWS. Now, this is a screenshot of the guard duty. Often I hear people talking about guard duty a lot. They kind of go, well, it's great. It's got orange, blue and red things popping up. I don't know what to do. One story I want to share is this particular customer, they have an AWS account, and in that have EC2 instance for innovation purposes. And it was open to the internet, and it got hit by ransomware. Okay, now, as they were doing the post-mortem of that particular incident, they found out they actually had guard duty turned on in that particular account in that region as well. So they found out guard duty was actually finding all the critical events tracing up to the final compromise. So initially, that was a scanning, brute force attempt in place, and then following that will be the EC2 instance trying to make outbound CNC calls to the ransomware command and control center. So all of those being captured. If we're looking back at the time, if someone, even for the manual processes, looking at guard duty findings, they could have avoided. But luckily, that was just an innovation account. It wasn't anything critical to their business. But they actually taught them a lesson. They started looking at how they can leverage guard duty findings. Even when they started, they just go, hey, I want to have a daily exercise manual, and then gradually they want to move to automation in place as well. I said it before, guard duty findings can be exported to the Security Hub. So you can actually exercise your action in one place in the Security Hub as well. So Security Hub, again, once you aggregate all the findings in the one place, you can actually trigger an event. So if there's an event coming from guard duty saying, hey, Ken, by the way, your EC2 is being scanned, and that's an event, right? I can use that event to trigger the downstream processing. Like I said before, the possibility is infinite. You can use serverless solutions, you can export a message, you can trigger your manual process, whichever way you want to do it. The most important thing is you want to do something about the event, don't overlook them. Very beginning, if we want to start with manual, that's fine as well, but do something about it. I think we need to speed up. Rotate your secret, we'll talk about it a little bit later before. Don't use the IAM users if you don't have to. Use IAM roles. But there are things you have to use, such as you will have to have the long-term secrets, such as RDS username password. So if you're ever using RDS service, when you create, let's say, Aurora MySQL database, and you can have username and password, and that's long-lived. But no worries, you can check in with seen a screenshot before, right? You can use the secrets manager to help you automatically rotate those secrets for you. So when the rotate event kicks in, it can be a time-based, like 1 day, 3 days, 10, 15, whatever you want to set. And secrets manager is going to help you to go to the backend RDS to retrieve the new credential. It's going to swap out the new credential with the swap out the old one with the new one. So when your application or your code running on EC2, etc., trying to retrieve the new secrets, given it has access to the particular safe, right? In the AWS Secrets Manager, you can then have the access to the new secrets, therefore the access your RDS instances. Now, this workflow over here, if it is RDS, you don't have the right line of code. But if it's something backend that's not part of our ecosystem, you can still leverage AWS Secrets Manager. Using Lambda, we have the guidance in place, teaching you how to do that as well. The last one, this is the one very, very close to my heart, especially for security people. So I worked as a independent consultant for enterprise security team a lot, and I totally empathize how security teams being seen and being positioned in enterprise. My advice here, or AWS advice here for security, is getting there early. Shift left, maybe a bit of buzzword, but let's probably unpack why is that important. We all know it's inevitable. There's different priorities being pulled in different directions, and security probably is in the middle, the sandwich. You have development team wants to go fast, operations want to keep us stable, they don't want changes, and businesses want to go fast, let's go. And your opportunity and your responsibility as well is to make things secure. Now, in the cloud, we basically have two flows. You want to manage. One flow is for the infrastructure services in the cloud, such as EC2, RDS, etc. The other flow is your application development. So the essence here is for you to ingest your control as part of the flow. So I'm going to take the example of infrastructure services. I'm going to show you some code as well, by the way. So what we advocating is, if I'm an engineer, I'm writing infrastructure as code. Okay, I'm defining my infrastructure and I'm going to write my application. I'm going to write my security as code in my CI/CD pipeline as well. So when I orchestrate my infrastructure as code in place, if it doesn't go through my security checks as part of a CI/CD, it's going to fail, and my CI/CD is going to give the engineer a message saying, "Hey, it's failed, by the way, and this is the reason why." If it gets passed, it's going to deploy an AWS environment. And you also have corresponding scanning checks in place, leveraging AWS config, for example, to continuously scanning your AWS environment, looking for if there's anything that's compliant or non-compliant. If it's compliant, that's great. You can file them away, and that can be very handy when it comes to the auditing process. You can always tell them, I've scanned everything, this is a timestamp, all great. If it ever finds anything that's non-compliant, it can then trigger automation to automatically remedy those non-compliant services. And very probably overly simplified infrastructure as code that's written in CloudFormation. Essentially, this code here is trying to deploy in an S3 bucket. Now, I want to draw your attention to the little bubble over here. Essentially, this code is trying to deploy S3, but with access control set to public. Okay, so let's assume public is bad. It could be bad for most organizations. Therefore, your security team has written a security as code. Well, it's literally one line. It's using the CloudFormation guard. You can look up online to see what it is. Essentially, it is a security as code service that we rolled out as open source for you to control your CloudFormation templates. So security team go, hey, I want all the S3 buckets. Access has to be private. Okay. Now, once you run your security, your CloudFormation guard with the security as code that you've written, and also the infrastructure as code you've written, it will give you the result. It's failed because you set control, access control is public and permitted value is private. Okay, the reason why I'm showing this code over here is to show you, hey, it is so easy. You can actually understand it. If you're using CloudFormation, do look up CloudFormation guard, and writing the policy that's very easy. Literally a line of the code is in plain English almost, and you can orchestrate those infrastructure as code and the security as code using the CI/CD pipeline. So that actually concludes our top 10 tips today, and I hope you agree with me with most of them. But also, I want to call out the call to action. Do look into the firewall manager. Do look into the IAM access analyzer. But also the third one, think about security, how you move your security to the left, how you move your security into your part of the development life cycle, and think about how you write your security in the code, orchestrate them in a CI/CD pipeline. So that's all for me. The last one is the link. Essentially, this link will take you to the past talks around the security. So if you ever missed any sessions, you can also go there to find the sessions for you as well. So I hope I'm good with time, and that's me. I'm giving the microphone back to the host.
Wow, wonderful. Thanks, Ken, for the great talk, and it's really very informative and got a lot of topics and content there. So I think at this stage, definitely many of us may want to have some questions, and there may be something which you may want to know more. So feel free to ask your questions. Anything that you want to know at this stage, anything you want to ask. You can either type in the chat or you can ask the question directly. So, anyone? Usually, as in the normal way, is facilitator got the chances to ask question first. So I saw that there's something which actually even we have played before with AWS on the network side. I haven't seen or haven't played with the network firewall before. So what's the difference between the network firewall with the security groups? When at what time we should use the network firewall? What time we should use the security group?
Okay, cool. So I might answer your second question first. You want to use both of them, and I talked about security groups essentially working as instance level security firewalls, and that works with ENIs, elastic network interface. So that helps you to drive your micro segmentation or instant level security from a network perspective. The newly announced network firewall essentially, you can think that as your traditional checkpoint, Palo Alto firewall, etc. So it works with that kind of rule set. It really aligns with how enterprise run the network level security. But the beauty is you don't have to worry about managing the capacity or anything. It's fully managed by AWS, and it's integrated with our VPCs and integrated with our firewalls, etc. So that builds your two tiers of controls from network perspective. The first one is probably from the overarching network level. The other one is from the fine-grained micro-segmentation level.
So is it the network firewall? Is it charged based on the usage, or how is that charged?
I actually don't have great information on that handy, but it is available online. Actually, if you go to the service, there will be a section talking about the price. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Any questions from our audience?
Hey, hello.
Yeah,
Yes.
I can hear. Yeah.
Hey, I have a question regarding SOC. You brief us about the power of guard duty and security hub showing a very good dashboard as well as mechanism for finding out exception and then output an alert. Do you still see a value of a separate SOC service if a customer is deploying everything on AWS cloud?
Okay. But I really don't want to give you the consulting answer that depends. I want to give you an example. Okay. Last year, actually late 2019, early 2020, we were actually helping a virtual bank to build a bank in the AWS cloud. So they had a security operation essentially internal but externalized as well. They have the managed service provider handling level 1, and they have the existing people handling level 2 and 3. So they run fully in AWS. By the time it's a decision for them to still use at the time was Splunk as the major work like SOC kind of single pane of glass. The reason why was the security operations center, the process and playbooks, etc., was built on that particular tooling. And also at the same time, we helped them to leverage some of the, what we talk about automatic remediation, etc., automatically running the response part of the SOC natively in AWS as well. So one side is to help them to reduce the well, the cycle between something bad happens and you can respond to it, but also helps them to also have the single pane of glass that the level 1 security operations center can still keep records in place. So I think your question, probably starting point is to unpack how do you see your SOC today? If you don't have one, how do you see it works in the future? Where do people sit? What are the skill set of the SOC as well? Do they work in the 1 to 3 level? Or do you organization to run the product kind of oriented model that every product is running, basically you build it and you run it. So all the events and security responsibilities actually going back to the product team as well. So it's different modes. There's no sort of one size fits all answer, but the most important thing is look at what you have today, or if you don't have anything, what you envision you will have for the SOC function.
I see. Thank you very much. So those surveys are only making. I mean, they help the platform log analysis, which helps the life of SOC. But there are still value of SOC because they have to do the whole cycle management of a security incident. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I think you are correct. Yeah.
Any other questions? Any questions from the audience? Don't be shy. You can take the chance to ask your questions. Other than the question about the network firewall, another tools which I think Ken has mentioned is very useful, but I haven't tried before. That's the Security Hub. So as for the use of Security Hub, it seems that it brings quite a lot of items all together. So can you show us a bit more about how to use the Security Hub, and also especially the one which you mentioned, the AWS Foundation baseline? Are you able to show us a bit more on that?
Yeah, sure. So I think what I want to do is to I'll give you a link to a hands-on sort of step-by-step lab. In that lab, though, what we're going to do is to help you to build first aggregation of security events, and the second, how you can write the Python script to orchestrate the automation of responsive controls. And going back to Security Hub, I think foundation from the step one, I really encourage people to turn on one of those 2 security standards. Most important one can be the foundational security standard. It comes with 90 controls. You can think about that as a what does good look like from a foundational perspective, and we'll give you scores as well. If you haven't got things right, we'll let you know, and also let you know how to fix them. So for the people right now, if you're running AWS or if you're just starting your AWS journey, turn it on. You can basically work through those scores. Even for people, maybe your team don't have good security awareness, working with the scoring system actually over time can help them to uplift their security awareness as well. So I think we don't have time to demo here, but I definitely use the to the lab. I actually personally enjoy it a lot, and it has different levels of capacity as well. So people with more coding, they can sort of write their own. And people who don't have coding, they can just go along with steps and still produce the outcome. It's a feel good kind of lab for people who really like the security.
Yeah, that would be great. So is it possible that you can share us the link, so later on we can also pass to our participants who joined this event as well?
Absolutely, we'll do that.
Yeah, that's great. So what you mentioned about the using those settings and also the configurations, is it able to help us in a way that effective defending against some of the attacks that you just mentioned in the talk as well?
In terms of how you configure your AWS services, right?
Yeah.
I want to put it back to the security. So the 90 rule security foundational security standards, in that maybe you can see one of the controls says S3 bucket must not be open to the internet. And how do you configure a S3 bucket not open to the internet? Is configuration, is the settings, right? So those are basically defining what does good look like from the foundational level. But also I'll talk about another aspect is you've got to overlay the security configurations with what's important for you and what's your use case as well. Perhaps your use case is to open S3 bucket to the internet because that's how it's supporting your use case. And then if you recall, I threw in an example of how people carefully design their architecture to fulfill their purpose with security in place, but also give it autonomy to proportion that that needs to be exposed to the internet. So I think challenge maybe I think people want to take the challenge of getting Security Hub, turn it on, and get 100%. It might sound easy, but trust me, if you have something running today already, it's not easy. But getting that right is very important for you as well.
That's great. That's great. I saw our participants ask a question. That should be very good one because I think in fact I'm also planning to take the AWS certification as well. But what kind of AWS certification you suggest for the audience to start with on AWS security related as what you went through? Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Obviously, we know there's AWS security specialty exam, but my recommendation is to, if you haven't got any AWS certification or knowledge, I would suggest you start with AWS Solutions Architect Associate. The reason why is that's a certification gives you the learning opportunity to understand the entire platform, all the services, and then because AWS we will look at things knowledge base or talent in a T shape, a letter T. So hopefully the Solutions Architect Associate gives you the span of knowledge of our platform, and therefore you can deep dive into the security part of the knowledge domain using the security specialty exam. So that will be my advice. Take SSA first, and then deep dive into the security specialty exam.
That's great. That's great. Thanks a lot. Any other questions? Any questions from the audience? That's the last chance for you to ask questions. That's really great to have Ken to explain to us. That's giving us quite a lot of informative stuff. And so let's thanks Ken for this great presentation and great talk. Thanks a lot. Sorry that you can't hear quite a lot of claps on their side because none of them turn on the mic other than us. But thanks a lot.
Thanks for staying here during the launch with us, and yeah, hopefully you learned a thing or two. Cool.
Yep. Thanks a lot. So thanks for your time. And next round we will have another knowledge sharing section. That one we will publish it very soon. That's from the from Thales. That's encryption product solutions company. So later on we will have the updates as well. So this round, thanks Ken, and thanks also thanks the team for the discussion. Thanks a lot. So
thank you.
Thank you very much.
See you next round.
Good evening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.